good morning, everyone. We're going to get started here with the Oregon Head Start Pre-Kindergarten Directors Monthly Webinar. Any second? Any second? All coming together. Show your screen. There we go. Welcome, everyone. That's the wrong thing. That was a good job there, though. There to go. There to go. Come back. Come back, you. All right. Well, it's 9:01. Welcome to our monthly webinar. Today we're going to talk a little bit with you all about the upcoming events in May and April. Dawn, who I assume is on the line. Dawn, are you on the line yet? I'm sure she's going to get here any second. It's got some project updates. Analyst Teresa will be giving an update also, and then our collaboration director, Shauna, who's named to make it to the agenda slide, will also be giving an update. I'll be talking about the tentative grant application schedule that we've established a draft version of, and we also are going to be, as I always do, talking about equity resources for programs, and then I'll have a quick huddle with the OPK onlys at the end of the meeting. As usual, if you have a question, you can raise your hand or type in the, we can't remember which side it is for you. Is it the chat box or the question box for you? But either way, whatever one you can do, feel free to do that, and Teresa or I will notice that you've asked a question. Hi, Sean. Sean said hi. And great. So with that, Dawn, are you ready? We're going to unmute Dawn. That should be really great.
Oh, she needs to enter her PIN.
Oh, Dawn, you have to enter your PIN. Dawn's going to enter her PIN. To be heard, I think. Just waiting for the PIN. I just wanted to say thank you all for the chance to meet with you all in Redmond last week. We had lots of good conversation and good questions. Lots of challenges for Head Start in Oregon, but also just really amazing for me as a relative newcomer to sit in a room with so many dedicated and sharp and passionate people. So I really appreciate the chance to meet with you all. And I'm looking forward to meeting with a lot of you again in May at Pendleton.
Dawn's unmuted now.
Okay, Dawn?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, go for it.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. I asked Michael to give me a few minutes so I can give you some updates. So I thought it was, whoops, everything disappeared.
Hang on, you're good.
Well, you saw what it was. Anyway, I'm going to give some updates on where we are with the Head Start and QRIS, now called Spark, alignment work that's been going on for over a year now. I wanted to talk a little bit about a couple of work groups that some of us are involved in around some social emotional curriculum training for the providers, for teachers, staff, and also what I think is the bigger body of work, which is on children asked to leave placements, basically the work around suspensions, expulsions, exclusionary practices, and kind of talk about some of the work that's going to be happening in the next few months and some roles we might have you play as that work moves forward. And then finally, because this impacts some of you, I want to talk briefly, and because it's part of my work right now, I want to talk briefly about some changes to the Special Populations Child Care Subsidy Program that are going to be coming up in the next few months. So I think someone needs to do the slide for me.
There you go.
So some things that have been going on So I don't know if there's really been any significant changes in leadership in Head Start in the past year because I haven't worked with you all as much as I would like. But I know most of you know that over a year ago, Dawn Woods and Megan, who was the director of the division, and I sat down with the directors in January of 2016, and we heard a lot about all the issues that were happening. I kind of want to say Dawn and Megan heard a lot because I had been hearing it for 2 years, all the issues that were coming up around QRIS and licensing and ORO, and how it was really hard for Head Start programs to be part of our QRIS system. And so we had a bunch of questions, then we developed a work group which had many of you and your staff represented, and we worked for many months coming up with some recommendations and a bit of a work plan. And then we and the division have been now working through that work plan. And some things that have come out of that are what most of you know has already happened, which were some significant changes in how personnel qualifications are used to do the star ratings. I am really excited and pleased to say that we now have 213 Head Start sites that are 5-star rated in our state. And you all have worked really, really hard at getting those sites licensed. When we started this journey back in 2014, I think we had something like 53 Head Start sites licensed in the state. And now, like I just said, we have more than 213, but 213 of them are licensed and have submitted portfolio items and are rated in our QRIS portfolio. What you probably recognize is that right now the interim solution is that the QRIS system recognizes that Head Start staff qualifications meet the highest levels of QRIS, and so you're automatically awarded the 5-star level for qualifications. I do want to make sure you all realize that we're expecting, and the state is expecting, that you still participate in the STEP registry system, and we're just sort of, we, now I'm saying we on the state side, I used to say we on the Head Start side. We all know that Head Start staff have super high qualifications, but the state systems are still going to expect to be able to see that in the registry. So I want you to make sure that you're still having that part of your ongoing processes in your program. What the work with Head Start has done is it's also made the system look at other providers, and this is where it would help OPK onlys. They're looking at other programs and recognizing that some of the same problems Head Start had are happening in other programs, where when you bucket out the teachers are rated and where the assistants or aides are rated, sometimes it doesn't work out to get the 50% in each category, which means then programs can't get the star rating. So there's actually a solution being tested through the whole state where it's still important that the person named as director is the highest level qualification, the star rating, but then the other staff are sort of all bundled together and looked at more holistically, which is allowing a lot of other programs to be able to prove that that their staff meet the higher qualifications because they're not being sort of artificially divided between those teacher and aide categories. So without me actually having a form up here to show you, maybe all those words weren't too meaningful, but I guess what I'm saying is you have done a lot of work to help move the state forward on recognizing that there are different ways to look at staffing patterns and where the quality is in the staffing patterns to meet those higher step level or star levels. So anyway, that's all moving forward, and lots of other things happening with QRIS, but personnel qualifications, I think the work that Head Start did has really moved the whole system forward. One thing, I think one of the biggest problems that Head Start programs had was navigating the ORO system. And so when I work with Michael after this webinar, we'll be sending out a document that has actually taken us several months of iterations to get it right, but we have what we're calling the ORO and licensing FAQ, frequently asked questions document, and it has, well, I don't know, I think 10 sort of buckets of questions on what happens when your staff lists aren't right, and you know, what are the steps you need to go through, who are the people to contact, What do you do when you have a change of director? A lot of the questions that came up in the alignment group are addressed in here, and what do you do when you work with your licensor and work with your licensor and work with your licensor, and you are still butting heads over a particular issue and you feel like you can't get anywhere? So we have some information about who you would call to go that next level. Some information on how training gets into ORO, and how to read the different documents so that you can problem solve and sort of target your questions to actually get them addressed, because sometimes if you don't ask the right question, you don't get the right answer, and then the problem doesn't get solved. So anyway, a lot of information in here. There's also something we're calling a sneak peek, and that's showing you that when ELS, the Early Learning Information System, goes online, hopefully in the next few months, that's the system that's going to allow identified staff in each program to go directly into the system to update their staff lists and do some other things, which was an ask that's been on the table for a long time, and ELS is going to allow you to be able to do that. So there's some information in this FAQ that tells you what that might look like when that happens. Some timelines and other things are described in the document. So anyway, hopefully, it takes a long time to put this stuff together. It feels like most of you have already worked out these solutions, but by getting it in print, it just means that everyone on every piece of the system is sort of following the same rules, using the same people, using the same language, and hopefully that will make it better for everybody. Another document that you may have already seen, but I'm going to get it to Michael to make sure that it gets sent out with this webinar document, is a listing that shows the whole background check process and timeline, and it shows where money needs to be paid at the different stages. And again, by putting it in writing, it kind of holds all of us accountable. It also helps us have more reasonable expectations. If the process goes according to plan here, it can take up to 16 days to process someone to be able to work in your program. And I know it seems like an eternity when you have an opening in a classroom, but at least it's in print now, and you can see where some of the breakdowns could happen and where you can track the process as you've submitted central background registry applications to the system. And another thing that's come out, well, maybe I should follow my slide here. The next thing is we're working a lot, Michael to some degree, Shauna, me, whatever, are all part of different committees that are working on QRIS revisions, and continue to be recognized in the revision process is that Head Start is the model for quality. So over and over again, we're being asked to give examples from Head Start, and those are being incorporated into the revised SPARC QRIS system. So I think we can really be proud of the work we did and feel like it took a long time, but we really have influenced that system a lot. Next slide, please. Some other things that hopefully will be improving the licensing experience. I sit on a group now, which is a result of the systems alignment work, and it's actually a licensing group that's called the Systems Alignment Work Group. And that group, with me chiming in, are continuing to sort of redevelop, rethink, and re-understand the documents that are used in licensing, the instructions that are given, what licensors say to programs, what they know. And some of the things that are going to come out of that process is a revised quote-unquote guide to becoming a certified center. That's a document that existed for a long time, and licensing assumed it was a really useful document, and as we started really digging into it, we realized it wasn't very useful at all. So I think when this new version comes out, if you had a new staff at your site that was trying to open a site, or if you had a situation come up you hadn't experienced before, like trying to move a site, I think this new document is going to make it much crisper, cleaner, clearer how to go about the process, who to call, what the steps are, what the forms are. Along with that, what licensing is working on right now is an annotated rule book. So, a lot of times the rules to certain people seem crystal clear, and you read it and you say, well, I certainly can see why there's these 3 different interpretations of that rule. And so what is going to happen in this annotated rule book is, oh, sorry, my screen just went dead here. What's going to happen in the annotated rule book, it's kind of like the old performance standard book, where on one side is the performance standard, one side is the rule, and on the other side are the guidance, or the, how to treat that rule in different kinds of situations. And I think the situations that are being described in the annotated rule book are a lot of things that many of you experienced bumps along the way. And by using that annotated rule book, which my understanding is it's supposed to be made public so that it can be seen by everyone, but it really should sort of reduce the incident of a licensor just having their own thing they want to do. It's going to be, no, you need to go look at how that's supposed to be interpreted. So that's coming out. It's actually in process, and the licensors are starting to use it, but it's as things come up, rules become annotated in the book. So another thing that's happening is the way licensing is designed. I think there's something like 70 licensing specialists in the state. Then there are 4 senior licensing specialists that oversee those folks and try to make things more consistent. And then above them are 3 managers who, again, put a layer of consistency on. But as this process is rolling out, something's coming out each month called the monthly licensing specialist corner. And that's where key issues that tend to cause problems out in the field are addressed and clarified in this basically a monthly email on certain topics. So one of the recent ones was on how to interpret group size, and when you have maybe toddlers that share a space, and can they go back and forth, or how to take attendance, just lots of things. But anyway, I think that will continue. These 2 documents here, the annotated rule book and the monthly licensing specialist corner, are going to really help build consistency in the licensing sector. Another thing that was brought to licensors' attention is that a lot of the forms that are referenced in the rule book and in the guides aren't really available to all of you, and so those are going to become more available on the Office of Child Care website. And in the instances where the forms really are supposed to come through a person, that should still be much clearer by this book called The Guide to Becoming a Certified Center. And then, as I mentioned, when I wrote specialist here, I'm really talking about Michael, me, Shauna. We continue to be represented on a lot of these licensing and QRIS work groups. There's regular reviews on QRIS applications when a program maybe has a serious finding on a license visit, and we are able to chime in and help give some context, which sometimes allows the program to keep moving forward. We're on the monitoring review committee, a lot of different things. All right, I think maybe someone else will have to move my slides, or am I supposed to be able to do that? There we go. I think I'm probably running out of time. I'm going to talk kind of quick. A couple of work groups that our team is working on. One of them is a work group that kind of is the result of some leftover funding we had from the Race to the Top grant, but one of the sort of topic areas was on child development and developmental progress, that sort of thing. Anyway, there was identified a real need in the field to have some better supports to teachers, providers, programs on supporting children's social and emotional development. And so that group is looking at some of the current practices, curriculum, training that's provided and supported by the state, and how we might enhance that and make it more available to different folks in the state. I have recently been asked to lead this group that's called, well, it's actually called Children Asked to Leave Placements, but basically I'm sure most of you kind of hear the issues about whether programs like Head Start are kicking kids out and that sort of thing. I'm hoping that the work of this group can move beyond that and really look at what are the new regulations that have come out from Head Start, sort of enhanced regulations, I should say, from Office of Child Care, just what we know nationally and at the state level about, the disproportionality of children being removed from placements, mostly around issues around behavior. So anyway, I'm probably not speaking to this very well because I do so much better when I see everyone's face. But my goal in this work is to really look at all these different initiatives that are happening in Head Start, at the state level, around all these coaching and mentoring things. There are changes to the CCR&R system, our requirements for QRIS, some of the other projects that are happening, 211 referrals, how our licensing looks at things, what our training systems are. And I'm working with a committee of different folks from the state, working with ECSE, to look at how can we, first of all, do one thing we have to do as a state, which is develop a policy on suspensions and expulsions. But then how can we develop and disseminate some really scalable and cost-effective but useful solutions to this? So whether it's better coordination with mental health, whether it's how ECSE does their supports to children, especially with behavior issues, a lot of things. So look for me to be working through Michael to probably be doing some surveying or tapping into a few of you for expertise on work that you're doing in the field, some of your continued questions. I wouldn't be surprised if we come out and do another sort of listening session on what are your issues around the supports you get or don't get to help you and your staff work with children with challenging behaviors and other children that you're struggling to maintain in full placement in Head Start. So and it's not just a Head Start issue, it's really about all kinds of early childhood programs, but I'm going to be looking to you for your expertise in that area. And then finally, I don't know, can someone move the last slide? Finally, I just want to talk a tiny bit, because some of you this has impacted you directly and some of you sort of indirectly. But there's a group called the Child Care Policy Team that's been reviewing for the last few months what we call the Special Populations Child Care Subsidy Program. And just to know how that works, big bucket of money from the Child Development, Child Care Development Fund, Child Care Development Block Grant, comes to the state, and then a portion of that money is taken out to support our licensing functions and some of the other quality improvement initiatives. Another chunk is skimmed out and is used for what we have deemed special populations, because they were folks that should fit subsidy requirements, but they just couldn't navigate the usual systems. And those groups were the alcohol and drug treatment centers, the migrant seasonal farm worker programs, and what the inclusive child care program, which gave some supplemental payments to families that were over income for traditional subsidies, and then the teen parent programs. So then a bucket of money was held by the other divisions in the past, but by the early learning division, and then the rest of it goes over to DHS, and that's what's used for ERDC and those other purposes. So we've been looking at the special populations bucket of money ever since the new CCDF rules came out in 2015. And we really determined that some of the ways we were using that money no longer fit with the intent or the law that governs those funds. And so we determined that we have to phase out the Inclusive Child Care Supplemental Payment Program, the Migrant Seasonal Farm Worker Program, and the A&D program. Now I've worked really hard to learn as much as I can about DHS, and we are going to be meeting with DHS at the state level to work through some of these issues over the next few months. I'm very confident that given some of the new ways that families are processed from I'm not saying in real life maybe because I'm not on the front line to know how it's really working, but how they can be processed so that families that are fairly migratory, like our migrant seasonal farm workers, can get processed in time to be able to tap into regular ERDC subsidies. And it's really my belief that the A&D treatment programs that we can be working with TANF jobs, because the activities that they are in, being in treatment, are really countable core federal activities that should be qualified under TANF. So we'll be working with them in the next several months so that hopefully by the time these subsidies from special populations fade on December 31st, we'll have new systems in place so that most of these families can navigate the regular DHS system to get the other subsidies that are available. We are maintaining the teen parent program in our special populations child care subsidy program, but we are going to be working on possibly some changes so that we're not having to do contracts, and we might be able to just pay directly, much more like DHS provider to client kind of payment system, but more on that in the next few months. And I already said we're working with DHS to tap into other subsidies. So I guess that's my update. I miss y'all, and I'll see y'all at something in the future, I'm sure.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Dawn. I appreciate it. If you've got questions for Dawn, you can type them in the chat box, and we'll try to respond to them either right now or by the end of the webinar. Dawn, are you still there?
I am.
She's good. Question that I just wanted to confirm with you, that the state PIR addendum is done. Is that correct?
That is correct. You know, over the last few years, well, the years I've been in the division, that state PIR addendum got reduced to be the tobacco survey. And really that tobacco survey was some really important work that was being done in the state a number of years ago and was being spearheaded by really Kathy Wamsley and Umatilla Morrow. And while there's obviously still interest in continuing to do that, smoking cessation and tobacco prevention, all those kinds of important work, we as a state don't have any place that we need or use that data, and so that is a burden you no longer have on your program. You do not need to do that survey for us.
That was a great answer. Better than I would have given, I'm sure. I got this slide is loading. Loading is a good number, but I don't want it to load. I want it to be there. Try this again, shall we? Okay, one more time. Loading. One moment, please. There we go. Well, let's check in with Teresa. Teresa, over to you.
Thank you. I'm going to be really quick. This month, the monthly reports, as have continued to happen, are starting to come in even before I request them, and I really appreciate that. Keep in mind that the link that I send out every month is the same link. So if you ever want to get in there on the 1st and I haven't sent a link out, you can go to your prior link and it will take you to the most current monthly report information. I always have that ready right before the 1st of the month so that if anyone is anticipating getting right in there, it's ready for you. Just want to let folks know that the equity deliverable, the demographic analysis piece, I hope you've all received it. If you have not, please let me know as soon as possible. And I'm here to help facilitate, along with Michael, any questions you might have on that analysis process, or any issues or problems you're having maybe with the web form link or just going through the process. And then I just have a quick reminder that we are coming to the end of the EGIMS claim year. So any funds you have in any of your grant pools, you need to look at getting claims in or planning out your budget cycle to make sure that everything's going to be claimed on time. And I think, barring any questions, that's it. And you can always email me or call me here in the office, and I'm happy to help.
Okay, thank you, Teresa. Just getting a little wait time for questions. We can always circle back to them. Seeing none, we will advance the slide and the webinar over to Shauna. Wait, we got to make sure she's unmuted. Where is she? There she is. Try out.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. It is wonderful to be able to be here with you guys. I was very sad to miss out on seeing everyone at Eagle Crest. I did let folks know that I would do my update, that's kind of more the Eagle Crest update during this monthly webinar, so you guys could kind of get a little bit of an overview of the current work that I've been focusing on. I think some of you guys are, or hopefully all of you are aware of the Summer Institute that is happening in late June, that we are one of the partners from the Early Learning Division working with the Department of Ed and other folks to be able to put on some more intensive training. The thinking behind it is that instead of having a conference where you go to 4 different sessions or 10 different sessions, that you actually choose one track and have a cohort and start to build relationships and connections with folks from other areas of early intervention, early childhood special education, home visiting, as well as preschool and childcare and Head Start, so that we can all work together to learn on specific topics. So you all should have received the link for that. It is free to attend, and it also does provide breakfast and lunch on those days, which is a wonderful treat. There's sessions as short as 1 day. This is the first time we have an offering of just 1 day, and that's a session on with a social emotional kind of component on the Thursday of that week that you can register for. But there's also sessions that are up to, I think, 4 days, 3 or 4 days. There's one on trauma, there's one on coaching that Mike will be doing. So there's a lot of different opportunities there. So if you need more information or that link, just let us know. You should have received that from Michael when did they receive that, Michael? Earlier last week?
Tuesday, I think.
Wonderful. Okay, so you should all have that information. As you guys know, I've also been continuing the work on the early learning partnerships, and that is really just the working with doing the memorandums of understanding in our local communities around helping our preschool partners from Head Start, Preschool Promise, and hopefully as we move forward, other entities kind of get on the same page and sit at the table to better understand how each other is working and how we can better support each other's work and how we can make things seamless and easy for families in our communities. So we're still working with our Preschool Promise partners, which was our starting point. And the hope is, I'm hoping to learn more about Title I preschools in your guys' community, and hopefully moving towards next year that we can maybe look to broadening that net and learning about some of the other preschools in our communities that we a deeper dive on duration. And so as part of, I know the screen has changed, but I can keep talking. And so as the deeper dive on duration, we'll be looking a little more closely at the effects of duration on our programs. I know many of you did some great work on applying for the grants and getting some work behind you so that you do have duration already starting in your programs in the fall. For all the other programs in our OPK only programs, we have some more learning to do about what is needed to meet those requirements and what the supports are. The other thing that is a big project I'm working on is I'm one of the people staffing the Spark Revision Ad Hoc Committee, which is a committee that is part of the Early Learning Council that will offer recommendations in regards to the final revisions of the Spark system to be implemented in our state based on community input, based on the validation study, and based on lots of different folks' information that they put together. So that group meets on the third Friday from 9 to noon. We're very fortunate that we have 2 representatives from Head Start that were chosen for the advisory committee, and that's Pam from Mount Hood Community College and Sabrina from Albina Head Start. So they will be helping to inform that system, as well as with, I think there's about 16 other individuals serving on that committee to help support that. So that's a big part of my work. You guys are, it's subject to public meeting laws, so consequently it is something you guys can call in. We have a GoToWebinar for that as well, to join and listen in on that or attend the meetings as part of that, and things do get posted afterwards. I don't know if we've talked to you guys about the new website for the Early Learning Division, but that's getting up and running, and there's a few kinks in it. So right now, hopefully by the end of the week, if not Monday, we'll have things updated for those committees so you guys can see it online much more easily. The other piece that I continue to do, as you guys know, a big part of my work is building relationships and staying connected to the federal level work and initiatives, which is one reason why I was in Chicago this past week. And so if we move to the next slide, I can talk to you a little bit more about some of the things that I learned when I was at the at the Leadership Institute in Chicago. So some little pieces, because of the new Head Start program performance standards, there are going to be changes to the grant application process, as well as the budget instrument and the PIR. None of those are finalized, but just to have you guys have a heads up that those things will be changing and moving as we go forward. The other piece that for duration, that all early Head Starts across the country that request funding received them. So early Head Start is fully at compliance, which would be August 1st that requirement was for. For Head Start, they talked a little bit more about the fact that we have time. We won't learn until February 2018 before we know when or how much of our slots will need to be converted to duration to be able to meet the new standards, because that piece is determined by the Health and Human Services Secretary, and that's the timeline for that. And of course, it's not implemented till the following fall, so the fall of 2019. So you still have a year and a half for planning. So they definitely touched on this. They know that Head Starts are wonderful about planning and thinking ahead, and so it's good to have it in your back of your mind, but not to start doing planning towards that until we know for sure it's going to be happening, was very much how they framed it for us. They let us know about the 75 new grants for early Head Start childcare partnerships. We do have one in the state of Oregon, but I don't believe those have been publicly, all of them publicly announced. I know some states and some places have, so we're excited for that. They did talk a lot about enrollment, and I know that that's something that I'm sure you guys have been talking about a little bit in Oregon with different challenges around enrollment, and that is actually a nationwide trend right now that we're having challenges around enrollment that they're trying to better understand. It is also a time, though, that we need to be especially good stewards of our funds and very responsive to making sure we're meeting what we've been mandated to do, which is to serve a certain number of children. And so consequently, they're really going to be taking a focus on enrollment. And so for programs that have been chronically under-enrolled, which the definition of that is 3 consecutive months, so for 3 consecutive months you've been under-enrolled, there will be further conversations with your program specialist and steps that Ken will be taking up to including removing funding and removing slots from programs, which is the direction they're going, because they want to make sure that the money is serving the kids that are available to be served in the places where those children are. So that is something that things we're moving towards on a federal level that's important for you guys to have an understanding of what that looks like. And so, and we're your partners here too. So if you guys have questions or need help around that, Michael is your go-to guy to be able to start those conversations and connect with us to help you guys with that. So with monitoring, there's going to be fewer events, which I know everyone's excited about. They did talk about there's going to be more data reviews of things you already supply. So the things that you put into HSES, the Head Start Enterprise System, the things you put in there are going to be reviewed more frequently and be utilized to actually monitor your program and to know where things are at. So it's an important thing for you guys to be aware of as you're entering data into that information is going to be utilized more so than in the past, and especially as part of monitoring. They said that the tools should be ready for September for the new way of doing monitoring. She called it Adia called it AMS 2.0. So they should be ready for September, and they talked about in June, July for the updates to be coming out and to start getting us information about that before they're launched in September. And they also talked about the virtual training platform, which they've been using and they're going to continue to use to go ahead and do that. So in addition, as we talked about the new Head Start program performance standards, they did a really good job of letting us know that there is a place in ECLKC, ECLIC, for you guys to ask questions, and that they will answer individual questions from grantees on ECLIC. They, of course, are still, encouraging folks to read through the standards and have a good understanding in those pieces, but we all know there's points where you get stuck. I know for me, I keep wondering if it says something else somewhere else that might augment things. So they are responding to those individual questions. You can submit them on the eClick. They are not doing policy clarifications, which those of us who have been in Head Start for some time are used to that resource, which when I first found it was thrilled to better understand and have a deeper dive of some of the questions. Their concern with the policy clarifications is that they get too specific for one specific situation and program and need, and consequently can be confusing or contradictory for other programs and other needs. So they're not going to be doing policy clarifications. They do plan on later having more of a higher level response to questions, more of a Q&A style response that will be available on the eClick after they've gathered and found the trends of what people are asking questions about. In accordance with that, they have done a background checks frequently asked questions, and if Michael follows the link, we can go right to that. And you all know Michael embeds his links because he's awesome. I don't, because I want you to be able to see it if you ever look at the PowerPoint, so you can type it in if you got it on paper or something. So this frequently asked questions is very useful for anyone who's had questions. I know we've had a few here. I think the one that if you go down to the almost the bottom of the page, it says, do consultants, contractors, and school districts, oh no, back up, sorry. It was the bottom of the page when you had it at the top. So do consultants, contractors, and school district employees need the checks? And I think that's a question a lot of you have had. They did definitely specify in here that it is people that are having contact with children and potentially being left alone with children. So if there's questions about your consultants and contractors, this does a deeper dive for you, but that's kind of the level that they are looking at, is the people that that is going to be have unsupervised access. And so your plumbers that are contractors, so because contractors is a big term, so that made it kind of challenging. So hopefully that helps you guys. But you can definitely read through there. There's more questions there. So that was a new resource that I hadn't seen before that they talked about at the meetings in DC. So back to our opening slides. The other fact that they talked a little bit about is that children can enter the program as soon as they turn 3, which I think most of us in Oregon were aware and have been doing that for some time. So that if you have a child right now and you're under-enrolled and you have a 3-year-old who meets all your criteria and has priority, that you can enroll them even though they're 3. And not 3 according to like a school year model. And a big piece of this is research showing that it benefits kids at this age, and even if it's just 30 days of the program year, like as soon as we can get them in, the better, and it does good things. One caveat that when I did the math and had a conversation with some other folks is that with eligibility, when you're in early Head Start, you're eligible for the full duration of the span until you turn 3. With Head Start, you're eligible for the year you apply and the following year. So consequently, if you do accept a 3-year-old today, and they'll be accepted for the rest of this school year and next school year, but their final school year, their family will have to reapply. And so if they have changed incomes or have other changes in their family, that might have an effect on their ability to maintain the program. So that's just something I want to make sure that people don't forget as they look at that and take that into consideration. They also talked a little bit about the pregnant mothers, and it does not define the duration or frequency of visits, that needs to be determined by need, and they're not going to be prescribing that, but allowing us to have that little bit of flexibility with what our programs and families are needing. They did note, and this was a good thing for some of our programs that were there, that the visit within 2 weeks of a birth does not have to be health. Previously, it did have to be somebody in health. I want to say a nurse, but I know somebody in health. In the previous standards and in the current standards, it does not define that it has to be somebody in health. So moving on from there, I think that's all the stuff from the Leadership Institute, but we'll see with the next slide. There's a lot of, oh, there's still more. So one thing that they, just little notes, is that there's been some confusion nationwide about the Caring for Our Children Basic as being the safety and health standards that we're following. Apparently there is a more elaborate version. So we're only doing the basic. So that's why I highlighted, capitalized the word basic, so you don't have to be holding to those higher standards. Those are things to aspire to, great if you have them, but not like a requirement such as the Caring for Our Children Basic will be. They also noted that as you have questions about waivers, that the waiver authority is actually in the Head Start Act. And so as you're looking for things and have questions about waivers, that's the place you need to look to get clarification, not in the new standards. So that moves us on to more fun lessons from Chicago. These are a little bit more broad. One exciting piece of tidbit I got is I hadn't realized that the uniform guidance was that they're looking at having an updated one that was supposed to be out, but it has not been released yet. So just for you guys to know that there is an update that will be coming out. And then from the previous uniform guidance, the procurement changes that were required by the uniform guidance had to be implemented by January 2017. So I'm sure most of you and your fiscal departments are well on top of that, but that's just a little reminder as you move forward with that piece. Another piece of that conversation that came out that, that many of you probably knew, but was news to me, is that there is actually specific guidance that comes out for auditors around what to audit for Head Start programs, and that had been significantly decreased in recent years, so that you weren't looking at enrollment or some other pieces that are around that. So it is something to make sure that you're checking with your auditors to make sure that they're using the most up-to-date information on what they need to be utilizing to monitor your program and what areas they will be monitoring. If they have found a finding or concern in an area that is no longer required to be monitored, but they already found it, they still have to keep it on until it's been resolved. So you might have areas that have been removed from the list of items that will stay with you because there was a previous find in that area. And so one really exciting thing for those of you that were at the last day, and that last morning, there was not many people there. So I'm guessing as some of our programs, I'm sure were there, but not everybody learned about this exciting opportunity. So PNC is a bank that's primarily on the East Coast, from my understanding, and they have partnered with donorschoose.org. And so we'll let Michael follow that link so we can show you what donorschoose.org is and what it looks like. So donorschoose.org is an organization that was designed by a teacher for teachers to be able to let us know what kind of supports they need in their classrooms and to be able to have people freely give and offer that. So if you scroll down just a little bit, we'll give an idea of some of the projects that they have currently, the most urgent projects. So there's that you want to get a document camera for early learners at North Bend Elementary School, and they want to get stuff for photography, digital cameras for another magnet school elsewhere. And so it's great because it tells you how much is still needed in those projects. These are ones closing, but there's a lot of projects. So if you scroll all the way to the top, because of PNC and their desire to do awesome things for Head Start, they've done some really incredible, great partnerships, especially the National Head Start Association and programs in their local areas, that they've approached donorschoose.org and said, we want Head Start on here. We want Head Start to be able to do this because these are the neediest of the needy children being served in our classrooms, and they need to have this as an option as well. So if you look at the top of the webpage where it says, are you a public school teacher in need of funding, start your first project, that's where you guys can start clicking. So when you have an exciting project at your program that you need to get funding for and you guys agree would be a great thing for the kids, you want to start a garden and you want to get the materials to do that, if you decide that there's a special field trip you guys need funding for, whatever it might be, you can do this and utilize donorschoose.org. The other two exciting pieces is if you go back to the slides, oh, he's got a cool little pointer, but back to the slide, that PNC was actually giving away like $25 gift cards essentially for people to be able to enter for projects. So I managed to get 4 of those. So for all of you that go ahead and sign up and you get a project started, send me an email and I will, first 4 teachers, and it has to be teachers, it's not program, right? It has to be teachers. The first 4 teachers, I will give them that $25 to get the process started. In addition, PNC through this partnership, which if it doesn't work right, contact me and I'll talk to them to make sure it works right, but they are actually matching dollar for dollar anything you raise in the first week of doing it. So if you launch this and you get $100 that first week, they will match that $100 so you have $200 towards your project. And so that's part of them trying to get us connected and encouraging us to utilize this. And it's something that you can, post on your social media page, but it's also something that, anyone can go on that's just looking for good resources, and it is tax deductible. They have some follow-up information, so they make sure that things are being used they want to and add this credibility to this source. So it's a very exciting piece that I encourage you guys to let your teachers know about, and let me know if you get a project posted and I'll gladly jump on and contribute to it. So next slide, please. So I know that all of you guys have been very busy, and with spring break and all these conferences, so have I. So you may not have even noticed that the assessment that I'd hoped to send out to everyone last month didn't actually come out. It is all set. I'm having some issues with emails and question trees, but it's going to go out today, even if we're removing questions because we can't get them to work right, so that you guys can get a look at it, and our hope would be to have it back by the end of the month, so April 30th, so that on May 1st I can start synthesizing that information to support my grant and support the work being done here. So I just went ahead and I want to go through some of the questions so you guys have an idea when you go to log on what I'm looking for and what information you need to have handy to be able to do that. So the first question is looking at the August 2019 requirement for duration, that if we do have 50% of classrooms that are needed to do that, how many physical classrooms will your program need? Because that's an important part for us around funding formulas and understanding like what the needs are with duration, is understanding like how many classrooms we need, because we know those are not cheap endeavors. So the other one is we're looking about to better understand how many of our programs have classrooms within a public school or on the property of a public school. So you don't have to be Portland Public School for this to apply. This is for if you're in Cowlitz and you guys partner with a school and you use a classroom or a mobile on their site, that you can give us that information. So we can just get a better idea of like where those connections are in the state with the public schools and what the numbers are for that. The question around transportation will likely be removed. This is where I have like question trees that are having issues. Obviously, I can get that bottom line question from the PAR. We actually have a bunch of tree questions off of that, asking about, when you stopped offering transportation, what made you decide, like what the priorities were that kind of bumped out transportation, to get a better understanding. Also, a question under there is about the diesel buses, because of the, those being phased out and the expenses of those, to better understand your needs around that. Another question is looking at the early Head Start, the conversion of Head Start to early Head Starts, and who is looking at that or interested or doing that. I know we have, I think, 2 programs I know of that are looking at that for this next school year. And then looking at, this kind of goes back to the conversation that Dawn brought up around the children who have been asked to leave their placements, in our work with some child care and preschool promise and EICSC, trying to understand this. And really it's trying to look at our level of what people are seeing with national trends around kids who are being excluded from early childhood programs. And because our system works differently and things are a little bit different, our questions are a little bit different. And so we just want to get a better idea of how many children are being transitioned to a better placement that a multidisciplinary team has determined was better for them. And then of those children, how many of them were observed by a mental health consultant, to get an idea of that utilization in your program for this need. And then also how many of those children have a plan to return to full services at the Head Start program as part of that work that was done to transition them. So those are probably questions you need to get from someone else in your program possibly before you answer the survey. So I want to make sure you had them to look at and think about a little bit. In addition to that, again, going to the social emotional work group that Dawn mentioned that she's supporting, as well as with the work around children being asked to leave their placements, we really want to better understand what you guys feel is supportive of your programs when it comes to challenging behaviors. So there's like a list of things that has there, and you can add others, but it includes staff training, utilizing PBIS, utilizing the pyramid model, or if your coaching model has really helped, or your consultant's really helpful, like to help us give an idea of what you guys think is strong in your program, so we can get more information on that. So the next page, these are actually questions that should be like numbered, but unfortunately I'm not good at using Google Slides. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 instead of 7, 8, 9, 10 or whatever. So the other piece we want to learn more about is, again, enrollment is a challenge across the country. And so we want to get a better understanding in Oregon about what the challenges you feel are for filling your slots and maintaining a robust wait list. And it has a bunch of options there. You can choose more than one. And let us know what you guys feel, in your opinion, is one of the challenges you're facing. And there's an other box too, if the option is not provided. And then the priorities for the work that I'm doing, the collaboration office, which you all know has a big name of office, but it's really me. But what type of things you guys would like me to focus on, and so that I can try to work those into my priorities as well, because I really am here to support all the programs in the federal and connecting those to the state. So I am a resource, and so I want to get a better idea of what you guys would like me to focus on. And additionally, we're really excited to learn what things you are doing and you're doing well and you're excited about. So this specific slide, this specific question, it has a drop down of lots of options. You can write one in as well. But I also ask that you write in your program name if you're comfortable with me contacting you and utilizing the information you're providing, or if a program asks about, I'm having challenges around enrollment, we're like, oh, we have a partner in Eastern Oregon who's doing great with that, so let's partner you with them. So if you enter the name of your program, it's kind of consenting to that. The way I have it set up in SurveyMonkey, it will let me know that everyone who has or hasn't responded, like on one separate list, but I've made everything confidential, so I can't track anything else in the survey back to somebody. So it is important that if you do want me to be able to know it's your program for any of the questions, you find a way to note it in that question in the other box or something if you want me to follow up with you, because I will not know it's you unless you tell me, because I think it's important for you guys to feel comfortable being honest in doing this survey and providing this information. And I think, is that all for me, Michael? That is all for me. So I covered a ton. Does anyone have any questions that I can answer connected to these pieces?
Comments, questions, feel free to type them in. You can raise your hand, we can unmute you. We've got a lot of options here.
Well, Michael likes to figure out how to unmute, so I think you should go for that option.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, seeing none, I want to thank you, Shauna, for such a lot of great information and, as usual, so pleasantly and ably shared. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Let me know if you guys have questions later. You should have my number, and you definitely have my email, so let me know.
Exactly. Okay.
And now I'm going to be muted.
So I do want to give a quick update on TS Gold. As you, probably irrelevant to you all, but the state contract is renewing right now. So we're talking with them about what's upcoming, and so here's a couple of things to think about. They do have a new interface that they're rolling out this summer. They have an emphasis on having things be really graphically clear. That's their main thing, and they've chunked out the work into these 5 categories: teach, assess, develop, report, and family. If you just have TS Gold, there's really little that's going to change about that. Because the assess part is TS Gold. That's going to remain the same. The song remains the same. And so what does that mean for your program? Well, for teachers and ed coordinators and TS Gold administrators, it's the same login. It's the same interface for TS Gold. So there's same access. There's really not much that's different. They like to liken it to, when your phone gets a new upgrade and it looks a little different, it feels a little different, but the guts of it are the same. There is a communication plan in place. You'll be getting what we hope are timely updates saying, hey, this is coming. It's really, really coming. And what will happen is that at the state, after Independence Day, after about mid-July, we're going to flip the switch, and so you won't notice a thing except that when you log in, it'll look different. And if you want to go to your assessment, then you'll click on the Assess button or the TS Gold button. I can't remember exactly what it looks like, but in general, it's the same. If you do use Creative Curriculum, then you can click on the Teach button. And the other part is for professional development within using TS Gold. That is the Integrated Reliability test and the basic course. That you would click on the Develop tab. And then they also, so we can talk about more about that later, but that is coming. But we do have some questions. Oh, I forgot the last question, Teresa. Darn it. Anyway, we'll come back to it. We'll swing around to that. We have, for professional development, there are some recorded webinars that are going to be available for anybody who wants either a medium dive or a deeper dive. We are planning to provide a really shallow overview. I mean shallow in the best sense, like quick and the top level overview for directors at the June Oregon Head Start Association meeting up in McMinnville. That's going to be like a 10-15 minute overview with time for questions, just so you all could feel like, oh, before this launched, I got a good look at it. But we do want to know how we can support your programs as well as we can in getting everybody up to speed. So we do have a couple of ideas, and we're looking for input. So the first idea is something about, is this question: would you like to have your staff, that's teachers, specialists, and TS Gold administrators, take part in a webinar to orient them to the new upgrade? So if you could answer that poll question, I'll give you just 30 seconds. 13%, 18% vote. This is like a city council election. 29%. Now we're up to congressional. 42%. Now we're at presidential levels. And with 50% in, the results are, I'm not a statistician, but that looks like a positive response with 100% yes. So I'm going to go with yes on that. So we're going to arrange that. And then the next part, I mentioned that we're interested in the idea of regional trainings for teachers and coordinators, but we're not really sure how to do that quite yet. So and I'll talk with Donna and Tristan and other folks on the Head Start Association, but if you're interested for taking one for the team and helping us think about how to do that well, we'd be interested in figuring that out. It's a big state, and so we want to figure out an efficient way to maybe help provide some trainings for teachers and coordinators. in part because it's a new system, but also we know that we have turnover, we have people moving programs, and we want to figure out some. So we'll follow up in email land about. But if you are interested in helping us plan that, maybe for your region, or helping us think about what would be a clever way to get the most people for a reasonable amount of money, then feel free to let me know that you'd like to help on that. Questions, comments on that? Great. Well, before I move on to the next thing, I should have mentioned that, or reminded us that Shauna has mentioned that in general, this webinar time doesn't work given some other commitments that she has. So we have to switch our time, which is not our preference, but it's just the reality. So we've got a couple of choices, and I'd like to ask you to think about which one would work best for you. The third Wednesdays of the month at 9 o'clock, or the fourth Wednesdays of the month at 9 a.m. That's 9 a.m. So people are really thinking, scrambling. We're going to give a full minute to reply on this. And it's quite a neck-and-neck competition at this point. It's like the race cars at the baseball game. We're going to give a full minute, so there's no need to panic or be worried, because we're just going to take a full minute here. 58% voting. Ooh, it's tightening up in the last 15 seconds. I do want to give a chance for people to chime in. Most people voted. It looks like a toss-up with leaning toward the fourth Wednesday. All right, unless I hear differently, that's what we'll go, which means we won't meet for about 5 weeks now, but that's fine. Thank you all, I appreciate it. Oh, a question pops up. Yes, sorry, Sean, I don't, Sean Leiberger is pointing out that Wednesdays are not great for our agency. I appreciate you saying that. We also have limited options and other challenges, so let's keep going. I wanted to preview, even though it's coming right up, the tentative ELD grant timeline for grant renewal applications. So, and I do want to sandwich this by saying that the Department of Justice here in the state of Oregon, and also the good folks in procurement, have yet to weigh in on whether the language that we have, so we don't actually have the forms to send you quite yet. We're working hard. But here's the tentative timeline. May 1st, we're again, as we keep saying, we're asking for MOUs with your program and any other publicly funded preschools in your county that detail distinct service areas. So those we're really hoping to get on May 1st. Now, if you don't have them May 1st, that's a good signal that we want to help you get to them. So that's partially why we're asking for them by May 1st. We want to figure out, who would be the best to help you develop that agreement as soon as possible. The idea with the new performance standards is to really focus on community assessment as the driver of grant requests. And so as we work backwards, we've got some hard dates, with one of which is we have to issue grants by Oregon law on July 1st, by no later than July 1st. So then you work backwards and we think, well, we have to analyze what you proposed, which is a service area. You have to propose a service area that's coming right out of the new Head Start standard. And that's a geographic area. And then by Oregon law, it has to be distinct from any other publicly funded full-service preschool, comprehensive preschool. And then once you propose your service area, you need to do a community assessment update, which basically says, tell us about you learn about your community and the potential demand for services, both in terms of a program option and how many eligible families you think are in that area that you've described, and then would be willing and interested in participating with your program. So that then generates ideas about how many slots you should be getting for that service area. And then so we want those community assessment updates with slot requests by June 1st, so that then we can spend the month of June really looking at those and evaluating those and trying to figure out how the state is going to allocate slots for the coming year. Of course, our preference, our default is the default, sort of where we've been. We have flat funding, we think, and the cost per slots are not going anywhere significant as far as we know. So we have a baseline, of course, but we want to be as careful as we can about thinking about where the highest needs are. And then, we'll be expecting those on the 1st, those assessment updates and the slot requests, and then on the 23rd, there'll be a packet of the good old phase 1 packet we'll be doing the 23rd of June. So that's our little timeline. If you've got questions or comments about that, or you'd like more clarification, feel free to email me. We're working hard on getting those documents out to you. Don't send us anything yet. We're going to be providing links so that you can send those in a organized way through a Smartsheet request, and so that's about that. Don't see any questions there. Don't see any comments. Do I have a draft or a sample? Yes, we could do that. In fact, our colleague Jane at Community Action just sent one out that she developed on her own, and I'm sure Sean and I can send out a draft template, something like that. We may have already had one similar to that. But yes, we'll make sure you get something out in the materials that will be hopefully helpful. Thanks for that question, Patty. Patty Wilson. She's identified herself as. I like that. Double last name. Well, it's that time of the year or the month where I share some resources. Oh, I have a poll for this. It's exciting. I've been highlighting the Teacher Time webinar series in part because so many of our programs, you're challenged by geography and staff time in terms of really providing resources for teachers that could be helpful in there. And this webinar series, I love it to pieces, in part because as I've mentioned before, and you can see on the calendar, every other episode is what they call a coffee break, where people can just log in and ask questions about stuff they've tried, challenges they have. It's a very, I think, generous way to think about what a webinar series could be. So I do have a poll for this, and the poll has to do with whether you've had a chance for your teachers to engage in the Teacher Time webinar series. So chime in. Vote early, vote often. Oh, I didn't know that. Patty points out that Wilson is her middle name as well. Wilson squared. That is cool. Learn something new every day. Just give another few seconds. So it looks like some programs have had a little bit of a chance to engage with it, and some programs none at all. We're really hoping that they're going to repeat that series next year, and maybe we can figure out some ways to increase participation for our teachers who need some. We all need time to ground ourselves in fundamentals and think through how that can affect our progress in our practice. Next up, this webinar, which happened earlier, which I covered up on my screen, which is really handy. Go away, big green monster. New concepts in language and literacy professional development. This webinar, which already happened, discusses unique delivery strategies for online professional development to strengthen teacher practice and support for young children's language and literacy skill mastery. This webinar is a gate to a 14-module resource. So once you do the webinar, then you're ushered into this whole huge resource that has video presentations, readings, application activities. There's lots of different resources within this resource. So I really think this is pretty cool, especially if you're working with teachers who maybe have mastered some of the basics and are looking for more exposure to resources and activities that will help them achieve some mastery in these very challenging area of dual language learning and language and literacy development. So that resource is available. The link is right there where it says here underlined. I wanted to point out that the Fatherhood Connection e-resource is available. It's a simple subscription, and it provides on a monthly basis resources for ways to connect with dads. You know, every dad is a Head Start dad, we like to say, and each month they provide resources and activities and ideas and so forth. This is a new resource guide that just came out a little bit ago, which identifies as another gateway resource. So it's a resource that identifies resources to help your program and all of our programs to become as responsive as possible to the growing diversity in our programs. And as you're working on your equity plans and your equity action items, this resource might be a really good way to get some ideas about how to make improvements where you have identified the interest and capacity to make improvements. Here's a webinar coming up on May 11. That's noon our time. It's really been helpful for me to write that. I gotta fix that. But it's around supporting children who live in families with very experienced substance abuse, and the webinar will be, of course, free and available. If you've got health or family service folks that might be interested, that might be a good place for them to be. Now we kind of get into the professional development calendar. We've got the OUAC conference coming up, April 21 and 22. We've been highlighting that for a while. We've got the May Spring Conference. As we said for the last few months, we were so excited because we've got a workshop in the morning that follows up on the really amazing presentation we had last month around the essentials for organizations as they look at improvement. And here at the ELD, we're all about helping you improve as much as we can, with a particular attention to improving interactions between kiddos and teachers. So I want to know that in the afternoon we've got a workshop for directors to work on both their professional goals for your program goals and also your coaching systems. So that will be in the afternoon, and I've got a little poll for that too. Isn't that cool? Oh, I didn't need to close that. That's dumb. How do I unclose that? Oh, man. Well, wait, Teresa's saying, hold on. We're not sure. Anyway, that's coming right up. And then, as Shauna mentioned, we have a fantastic Summer Institute coming up, June 18 through 23, 2016. And we've got a question there around how many of your coaches will be attending the Summer Institute. I'm going to push the launch button, Teresa. Okay, almost there. Lots of participation, good to see. And that's great. It's great to see so much participation. That's fantastic. Western Oregon University Summer Institute's coming up, August 9 through 11. And that brings us to the close of the whole webinar. I want to invite the OPK only folks to stick around. We've got some little updates for them. I want to appreciate everyone who had a chance to stay with us this long and informative webinar. I really appreciate everyone being here. If you're one of the 7 state-funded programs, we invite you to stick around for the next few minutes. Otherwise, the rest of you are free to stay or leave as you like. Thank you very much for your participation. Just give a little bit of time to all right. Well, I just wanted a chance to check in with the OPK only directors about the spring conference in Pendleton. We had a chance to talk quite a bit about that at the Redmond meeting, but I just wanted to check in about who's planning to go. If you have any questions about that workshop, let me see if I can, if you have a comment, feel free to raise your hand and I can unmute you. If you've got a question or a comment about the spring conference. Remember, there's a morning session to kind of follow up on the work that we did last month here on the webinar, and then there's an afternoon work session for your program to work on your program goals and your coaching systems. Any questions or comments about that, feel free to raise your hand if you've got one. And then last, just coaches attending the Summer Institute. Most of you have responded to the, I really appreciate it. We do have some money for reducing barriers to participation. So we'll be, if you need some help, on that, feel free to email me and we'll try to help you out. I can't guarantee 100% funding for everything, but if you've got people who are off calendar but need childcare, that's one thing that's come up. If you're traveling for more than 70 miles away, we may have some money to offset travel expenses. So feel free to contact me. Okay. Last thing, Teresa points out, and maybe I'll just let Teresa talk a little bit about that if you don't mind there, Teresa.
Unmuted.
Okay. We had sent out probably 3 or 4 weeks ago a link to our leadership survey that really talks about coaching and professional development supports for your programs, and the response rate isn't quite where we would like it. So if you have an opportunity to complete that survey, I'm happy to send a link out again so that if you haven't done it, you can go ahead and help us gather this information so we can support you in your professional development for your staff, your coaching, and those needs.
Thank you, Teresa. We really would appreciate those responses to the survey. All right. Well, I know people are very busy. I've got a question here. Call-in option for the spring conference sessions. So the spring conference is run by the Head Start Association. So that would be a good question for Donna or for Tristan. Stephanie, thank you for asking that. Other questions? All right, having said that, I wish you all a very happy April, and we'll be chatting with you again in late May, but hopefully seeing a bunch of you in Pendleton. Thank you all very, very much.